how you see Mao ranking among the Marxists and what his contributions were and legacy is.
Oh, that's a hard one. Well, he's certainly among the important people. More, I don't mean to be unfair to him, but more because of his role. He brings sophisticated Marxism to China. I mean, you don't have to say anything else. That makes you a world historical figure of the greatest. I mean, it's stupefyingly important what he did. Number one. Number two, his political decision has shaped the world in a way not like Gramsci. Gramsci's got this corpus of work on analyzing culture. Mao didn't do anything like that, not that I'm aware of. But Mao said to the Marxian tradition, of which he had become a part, that your focus on the factory, on industry, as the crucial place to organize is a mistake. It took unbelievable courage. I said, and now, as if I were Mao, it is a mistake not to understand that the rural, agricultural peasant of the world can be an equivalently revolutionary force. In Western Europe, where Marxism is born, the most reactionary part of the society were the rural, uneducated, often illiterate, religiously dragged down. And so the chances to organize revolution there were hopeless. And revolutionaries who were themselves typically urban, relatively educated, they went to work on the workers that were close to them, that they understood, from which they themselves came, the urban, industrial, and you had this split. Mao is absolutely staggeringly important because he brings the notion of Marxism and Marxist revolutionary anti-capitalist mentality to rural areas who didn't have any capital. For them, they were just beginning to deal with capitalism, and they already had this enormous push against it, which makes the evolution of places like India and China radically different from the West, where the split of agriculture and industry. I mean, Mr. Trump's base is rural, is suburban, is not. The big cities of this country are where Mr. Trump has got a lot of problems, right? That's our culture. That's not the way it is in the East. And Mao is as much responsible for that as anybody, probably more so. So that innovation opened up Marxism to become revolutionary for what is the majority of the working class of this world, which is rural, was rural, still is rural and agricultural. And so now, India has 4 communist parties. China is ruled by a communist party. Vietnam is ruled. Mao breaks all that open and makes that a force in the world. And if I had time, I would make you the argument that what that achieved is the foundation for the Chinese economic development post-World War II. And that means that Mao is responsible in a major way for the ability of China to be a superpower challenging the United States right now. If you deal with Mao in this country, they have no idea who you're talking. I mean, the the lack of an understanding of just a simple story I just told you in this country is stupefying. It's like, I don't know how to make an equivalent. It's like if that fellow over there who's working with us wanted to light a cigarette, but didn't know how to do it. And I said, here's a lighter. He would be stunned. Look at that, a thing with the fire. Whoa. And you'd feel for him. Oh, my God, you're out of touch. We've had these lighters over 50 years. No, Mao is a bad person in China. End of conversation. And I'm talking about educated people like those at Harvard and Yale.
My Chinese teacher who's in China told me that they all really look up to him.
Yeah, for God's sake. Yes. Doesn't mean you can't disagree with this or that or this policy or his capacity of swimming up the Yangtze River and all the other funny stuff about him. He had that. They all do. But if the man is to, Jesus Christ, what he accomplished. I would say this to you, that the pamphlets he wrote, you know, the history, the Long March, when they're driven out of the South, driven out of Shanghai. The early days of the Chinese Communist Party were in the cities, as was Marxism focused. And Mao was a young, middle-level income family kid. And he's organizing in Shanghai, in the south of China, in the urban, with a focus on the industrial. And the government of China at the time, a nationalist government, under the heading of a man who became famous later, Chiang Kai-shek, the leader, hates the communists. He is the expression of the emerging Chinese capitalist class, the entrepreneurs. Remember, China in the early 20th century is what we're talking about. This is 1920, in around there, 25. Is just coming out from being a semi-colony. It was never a colony in the sense that Britain owned China the way Britain owned India. That never happened. But along the coast of China, the cities that were interesting ports were snatched by European countries. So you can think of it as China had portions of itself taken over. Hong Kong by the British. There were Portuguese, there were Spanish, there were French. It was horrible. And the Europeans got together and defeated the old Chinese government in something called the Boxer Rebellion, right at the beginning of the 20th century. So China was, as they now say, going through its 100 years of humiliation. That's how it's called in China. And here were some communists who were upset about it. They probably, I don't remember the detail, but certainly from a good number of them, they had left China to become students in Western Europe. They didn't come to the United States in those days. If you were a young, aspiring, middle-classy kid in China in the 20s, you went to Germany, France, probably that's, maybe England. I don't know. I know the ones about Germany because one of them became a student in Berlin and took my mother out on dates.
Oh.
Those I know. And I asked her to marry him, which she did not do, but she thought about it. She married my father, who's not that guy.
For which we are all thankful.
Yes, I hope so. Years later, my mother went to China to visit and let it be known to somebody. She didn't even remember who. Well, she had to get a visa and crap like that she knew Wan Pinyan, which was his name. He had by that time become a very high official in Mao's government, When the plane arrives, a black limousine, a mile long, comes out onto the runway. And as she comes down the stairs, they move her to the side. The rest of the passengers go in. She goes into the limousine, and there he is, welcoming her to China. A big moment. That's why I know all this. Chiang Kai-shek murders a whole bunch of them, sends the troops. They're having a meeting of their little, very small communist party at that time in Shanghai. I'm pretty sure it's Shanghai, and murders a lot of them. But a bunch of them escape. And they then go on a long trek, pursued by Chiang Kai-shek's military, to escape. And they go deep into the interior. And that is called the Long March. If you read any history of China, there will be a chapter in the book on the Long March, because it was in that period. It took a long time. I mean, I don't know, maybe years. I mean, the Yunnan into the deep interior of China. You know, it's like, I don't know, if Americans had gone at some early point in the 19th century to the wilderness of northern Minnesota or something like that, you know, just far away. And they settled among peasants in this province. And they organized the peasants against their own landlords, built a base, and that saved them from the army of Chiang Kai-shek. And there they built an alternative system, society, putting many of their principles into effect, but also, not being stupid, built an army. It's very famous in China. It's called the I don't know the reason why, but it had the funny name, Eighth Route, 8 as in the number, Eighth Route Army. The people, the Red Army, the Eighth Army. Then the Japanese invade China, 1931. Then there's a war between China and Japan, and Chiang Kai-shek now has to stop pursuing the communists because he can't. I mean, they're too strong now in this distant province. Fights the war with the Japanese in alliance with Mao, who's now the leader in this Yunnan. And as soon as the war is over, the Japanese are defeated. They turn on each other, and they have the Chinese Civil War, which goes from 45 to 49. Mao wins, Chiang Kai-shek loses, leaves China for the island of Taiwan with his people, which is why Taiwan is
Really
weird. Yeah, that's how that happened.
That's the root of that.
That's all that's about. And if you want to know why the Chinese would be angry, they won a civil war. They worked together to defeat the Japanese, which they did. Chiang Kai-shek, the discredited, defeated loser of the Civil War, goes to this little island. It's like Jefferson Davis had gone to, I don't know, Staten Island and set up shop. The Chinese think that's their territory, which it is. And that it's their issue to work out, that the United States would decide that this is, you know, that is sheer cuckoo. And you couldn't possibly tell that story to the American people because it would have the effect it's having on you, which is, oh, I didn't realize this.